Welcome back to our channel where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. Today, we bring you some news. William explodes after Camilla wears Catherine's legacy at royal banquet. An insider source asserts that the relationship between Camilla and Prince William has become strained, marked by numerous conflicts regarding the restructuring of the royal family. The lingering impact of Princess Diana's death and recent revelations concerning Camilla's involvement in the circumstances surrounding his mother's demise. Additionally, it is suggested that Camilla is attempting to influence King Charles's decisions and has contravened the late Queen's wishes by seeking to redefine her role from Queen Consort to Queen. This film will provide an unseen narrative on Prince William's actions toward Camilla. An event that seems to be simple is a state dinner that is held by the British royal family. This is because centuries of custom and preparation have made it appear effortless. This comfort is the result of years of practice and choreography, which consists of a series of tiny, precise actions that, when combined, provide the impression of stability and continuity. The purpose of these meals is to demonstrate stability, diplomatic civility, and the concept of a united dynasty. They are packed with intention with every bite. Buckingham Palace serves as the location for these events, which are the monarchy's form of soft power. The flowers, the seating arrangement, the silverware, and the music are all important aspects of the event. Therefore, the fallout seemed especially stinging when a recent dinner which was supposed to calm the public at a moment of fear instead became the site of a public and painful internal fight, the banquet becoming the venue of the conflict. The spark lay in a single decision that at first glance seemed to be rather insignificant: a gown that Queen Camilla wore. However, in the context of the symbolic economy of the royal household, that garment was seen as a message. Observers, most notably Prince William, saw it as a violation of an unstated decorum, and even worse, as a very personal affront to his wife Catherine, who is the Princess of Wales. Everyone was reminded by the experience that the convoluted history of the royal family continues to influence how it acts in the present day, and that old wounds may cause them to resurface in unexpected ways. In order to comprehend the reason behind the significance of a single outfit, it is necessary to have an understanding of the objectives that a state banquet is intended to achieve. These events are a combination of ritual theater and diplomacy in equal measure. Not only are heads of state, ministers, and dignitaries from other countries invited to eat, but they are also asked to see a spectacle about the continuation of the country. Because the scenario has been so meticulously put together, even a little discrepancy might be interpreted as a purposeful signal. Over the course of many centuries, kings have communicated who they are and what they believe in via actions such as their attire, hand gestures, sitting postures, and carefully regulated smiles. The choices that are made, such as a sash here and a certain sequence of arrival there, constitute a language that courtiers and foreign diplomats who have received proper training have learned to read. Due to the fact that the royal household's influence is primarily dependent on the image of unbroken tradition, the royal household spends a significant amount of money on maintaining the consistency of that language. It is never enough to just have the grand ballroom of Buckingham Palace serve as a background. In addition to having its own lexicon, it is a stage that was designed to wow. The smooth floor was illuminated with a shimmering light that was projected by the high ceilings and gigantic golden chandeliers. There were pictures of long-deceased sovereigns that were framed by heavy gilded moldings. The painted faces of these monarchs had seen generations of royals meet, argue, and reconcile with one another. To establish sightlines that stress hierarchy and formality, the hall was lined with long tables that were set with pure white linen. These tables stretched the length of the hall. At each location, customized glassware was waiting for guests, and bouquets of English roses filled the air with a fragrant aroma. Palace silver and silver-gilt silverware shone brightly. A warm aura was added to the image by the flickering of hundreds of beeswax candles that were placed in candelabra. The whole arrangement was a carefully crafted show that was intended to remind visitors and the world at large of the long-standing presence of the crown, as well as the ceremonial heritage of Britain. It was a deliberate case for the institution's ability to endure. The occupants of the room were a reflection of that narrative. Seats were filled with high-profile diplomats, ambassadors, and heads of state from throughout the world. White tie or national dress was the attire of choice for males, while ladies donned couture and diamonds. At times, relics that had been handed down from generation to generation were seen flashing. The tiny and unobtrusive orchestra hummed in the corner, selecting compositions that would be appropriate for the atmosphere. They were looking for music that would keep the talk going rather than overpower it. The conversations continued to be calm and courteous. The buzz of diplomacy permeated the area without ever becoming loud. Not a private meal, but rather a performance in which every plate, every sip, and every glance contributes to telling the story of a stable and enduring monarchy. It was a high-quality theatrical experience. The night was supposed to be evidence against recent allegations of tension within the family. It was supposed to be a means to declare in a manner that was both quiet and firm that everything was still okay. With the exception of looks, even the most meticulously kept may get damaged. The breach that occurred on this particular evening was not the result of a blunder or a speech. Rather, it was caused by attire, which is an item that holds a tremendous deal of significance in royal life. There is no such thing as simple attire in this place. Rather, it is a visual language. Allegiance, reverence, modernism, or continuity may be communicated via certain design choices. Lineage may be conjured up by a tiara, and a hue can convey either somberness or hope. Because of the events that took place at that meal, that language became loud and evident. The members of the royal party arrived in the customary sequence. First to arrive was King Charles III, who was calm and bearing the weight of his responsibilities. After that, Queen Camilla proceeded with the elegance that she has cultivated in her role as queen consort. She was dressed in a glittering silver gown that caught the light and caused an initial wave of appreciation to be directed toward her. She gave off the impression of being a dominating and polished royal for a little period of time, which is the image that the palace makes an effort to convey during times of national scrutiny. However, that instantaneous approbation changed very quickly. In the room there was a shift that was nearly imperceptible. A few people's eyes widened, and there was a little collective intake of air. It seemed as if a current was moving from one table to the next as the murmur of response spread. In order to conceal faces, fans were hoisted. The conversation came to a very quiet halt. The gown was the underlying cause of the change in appearance. For many of the people in the room, it was more than simply a gorgeous outfit. It was a memory that had come to life. Immediately, the gown was noticed by a number of observers, including members of the press, royal watchers, and a few guests. The garment was identical to the one that Catherine, Princess of Wales, had worn at a previous royal dinner that was of great significance. This particular appearance had been enthusiastically praised, documented, and repeated throughout the many media outlets across the world. The picture of Catherine wearing that dress had been ingrained in the minds of many people, and it contributed to their perception of her as elegant contemporary and a symbol of a future generation of royalty. A number of people had begun to associate the garment with her current state of affairs, and with what she stands for, which is a refined and forward-looking continuity. As a result, the sight of Camilla walking in while wearing it was shocking and puzzling to everyone and everyone else. With the melody of the orchestra faltering for a beat, even those who had been educated to seem calm were unable to completely conceal their disappointment. Uneasy looks were exchanged amongst guests, smiles became more tense, and the personnel of the palace who had been instructed to remain inconspicuous displayed a momentary expression of incredulity in the way their eyes moved. The air in the ballroom, which had previously been a controlled hum of polite diplomacy, became heavy with tension that was hidden from view. This event, which had begun as a display of togetherness, suddenly seemed like a scandal that was taking place in real time. The reasons why the outfit had such a strong resonance are worthy of consideration. It is common for specific ensembles to acquire shorthand for a certain person or event in public life. Photographs are sticky objects. A picture that is widely disseminated accumulates several layers of cultural significance. One of the pictures that Catherine had gotten used to seeing was that silver gown. An unending number of pictures of her entering the same room while wearing that dress had been published across various social media platforms. Fashion writers had lauded the cut, and observers had taken the occasion to bring out a more kind and contemporary portrayal of the royal family. For several observers, that one gaze became a type of claim. It served as a visual link between Catherine and the public's dreams for a monarchy that is less burdened by the past. The moment Camilla made the decision to wear that gown, whether on purpose or not, she positioned herself inside that visual lineage. For some who held the older picture in high regard, that seemed to be an act of appropriation. Others saw it as a declaration of self-assurance or a claim to the same metaphorical area as the original statement. The interpretation was contingent on one's position within the extensive history of the family, and that history is not only historical, rather it is experienced through the bodies and voices of the individuals who were responsible for producing it. The Princess of Wales proceeded to enter the room. Despite the fact that she was smiling and standing in the same manner as she often does in public, she exhibited a subtle and worried change in her countenance that only those who were near enough could perceive. Control was still there, but so was a more profound feeling that did not completely vanish along with it. The attention of everyone was drawn to the two women, Camilla, who was wearing the dress, and Catherine, who was connected to it by fame and image. There was a sudden shift in the storyline of the evening. Suddenly, a supper that had been constructed to convey a sense of serenity and continuity had transformed into a scene of conflict without words, a drama that was portrayed via looks and textiles. A number of people, including Prince William, were among the first to see the entire meaning. According to those who were seated in close proximity to the royal party, the minute Camilla appeared, his demeanor underwent a significant change. He had been engaged in the typical courteous conversation, but the realization struck him like a ton of bricks. William did not consider the outfit to be just another fancy gown. Due to the fact that it had been a part of the narrative of his wife's rise to prominence in the public eye, he was intimately familiar with it, including every fold of the silk and the way the embroidery caught light. According to witnesses, his first response ranged from one of bewilderment to something more aggressive. His jaw became more tense. He squeezed his hands so tightly that the knuckles became white as he was sitting on the fine tablecloth. It seemed as if he was completely engrossed in the activity, almost as if he had become detached from it. The voice was chilly and restrained, a private wrath directed at a public injustice. Observers stated that he whispered, "How dare she?" in a tone that was so low that it was hardly audible. At that precise moment, he was less of a prince doing his duties than he was a spouse who felt that the dignity of his partner had been violated. Changes in his physical appearance were seen by those who saw him. His posture, which had been relaxed, became tense, and his hands, which had been resting motionless, started to shake. Catherine, who is sensitive to her husband's emotions, was also aware of the shift in his demeanor when she heard someone close bend over and say, "He looks as if he is about to explode." In a move that was both gentle and anchoring, she reached under the table and laid a delicate touch on his arm as she did so. She muttered, "Don't," with the composure and authority that she often exudes in high-pressure situations. "Not here, not now." William seemed to regain some self-control and showed some signs of softening into her touch for a brief while. It has been said that Catherine's constant presence serves as his anchor on several occasions. Through her studied combination of empathy and restraint, she has become the public face of a calm and measured approach to difficult events. She is able to maintain the composure of individuals who are in her immediate vicinity. The hatred and hurt that was buried under the surface did not go away. The garment was more than just a fashion statement. It was a touch that touched on ancient scars and tangled history that included his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. According to reports, William had a sense of the reopening of history. The sight of the silver silk brought back memories of his mother and the grief that was linked with her existence. Due to the fact that he was experiencing both past and current humiliation, the moment was very painful for him. It is helpful to have some background information in order to know why his response was so severe. The origins of William's sentiments are not based on a single incident, but rather on a lengthy and distressing family history. There was a moment when his mother endured both public and private suffering, and the gown had become a bridge for him to remember that time. The sight of it on the lady who had been a part of that tale for a considerable amount of time brought up memories that time had not been able to help smooth over. It was characterized by some, with knowledge of the situation, as the ripping open of old wounds, the type that you learn to live with, but that might suddenly come back to haunt you. William's recollection of the ballroom and its glitter faded into pictures from his boyhood. He recalled a little kid seeing his mother negotiate a difficult marriage, intimate suffering that the cameras never truly recorded, and countless headlines and humiliations that were played out on world stages. In relation to the story, the name Camilla had a great deal of significance. The anguish that William feels from not having his mother there at significant personal and public milestones has never completely gone away. Diana's absence remains a silent and persistent influence in William's life. There is always a glimmer of what was lacking in the background of every family victory. There is a complicated relationship between clothing recollections and the current moment. William has made statements and behaved in public in ways that give the impression that the experiences he had as a youngster had a significant impact on him. Being protective of his family and apprehensive of anything that may bring back memories of the humiliation that his mother went through, he has been a guardian. The silver gown that Camilla wore seemed to him to be a reopening of a chapter that many people believed had been expertly edited and mostly closed off. Because of the impression that the action was planned, the situation evolved into something that was more than just a personal injury. According to the sources, William thought that the crime was deliberate. Catherine was said to have heard him remark, "This is deliberate, according to those who were close." The gown had become less of an article of clothing and more of a conscious use of symbolism in his view. It was a weapon clothed in silk. He said, "She knows exactly what she's doing." It is difficult to determine whether or not Camilla really intended to do that. Famous personalities often make decisions for a variety of reasons, including vanity, boredom, strategy, and even a misunderstanding of the situation. On the other hand, symbols that are already charged might be seen as provocations when such choices are made. William was unable to find a place to settle later that evening, after all of the visitors had departed and the passageways of the palace had been cleared out. It was the marble flooring and pictures that made the hallways of Buckingham Palace seem bigger and more haunted as he made his way through the more peaceful areas of the palace. When people make an effort to keep their composure in public, they tend to bottle up their emotions and store them away until private times when they have nowhere else to go. According to the story, a clash took place in one of those shadowy tunnels behind pictures of kings who had passed away a long time ago. There are a number of different accounts, as is typical in royal circles, but one version is that Camilla was able to catch up with William in the passage. It is not clear if the act was purposeful or unintentional. Regardless of the circumstances, they were alone for a brief period of time with just painted faces observing. William is said to have turned his back on her, his face displaying a level of wrath that he was unable to contain. He made the statement, "You knew," which was more of an accusation than a question. "You knew that was Catherine's dress." The reaction that was claimed to have been given by Camilla was cool and even dismissive. "It's just a gown, William. Don't be so dramatic." This phrase, which was maybe intended to diffuse or reframe the problem, brought about the opposite effect. The equanimity of William began to crumble. According to him, the gown contained a memory, a moment of dignity that he believed had been removed and put in a location where it would inflict public shame. He argued that nothing in the family was just anything. His accusation was that Camilla had purposefully worn it in front of everyone, which he considered to be an insult. The conversation quickly became increasingly intimate. According to reports, Camilla stated that William gave too much power to ghosts and cautioned him that he must not let the dead dominate his life. This was a veiled allusion to Diana. That was frustrating for William. Just like a new wound it struck. What he said in response was, "You will never understand. You were the cause of her pain. And tonight you didn't just insult her memory. You disrespected my wife in front of the world." This is according to individuals who recounted the event. Camilla's mask of control was temporarily removed for a moment. Before she regained her composure, she seemed to encounter something that may be described as pain or a glimpse of guilt. She had spent years navigating a complicated public position that needed both humility and assertiveness. It was a delicate balancing act in which she had constantly attempted to carve out a place that was acceptable to a society that had previously despised her. In private, she has her own complicated sentiments about the past, just like everybody else who has dealt with controversy and mending throughout their lives. However, the encounter that occurred in the hallway had the effect of making that repair seem precarious. In order to see the aftermath, William did not remain. In the process of turning and walking away, he left his shadow to fall amid the pictures of kings and queens who had over the course of ages been witnesses to a great number of secret royal storms. The problem that was at the core of the incident was crystallized when he was seen leaving the scene. He was a man who was attempting to carry both his duty and his private grief. Two realities run parallel within the family. When private memories are brought up, they have the ability to disrupt the public choreography of statecraft and duty. There is also the public choreography of statecraft and duty. William and Camilla have a complicated relationship, and this conflict, whether it is whispered in the hallway or played out more clearly at the dinner table, rests on top of that relationship. Because of the functions that they play within the family, they are often in close proximity to one another. William and Camilla have been forced to work together more closely and in public as a result of recent health difficulties that have affected both King Charles and the Princess of Wales. This is because the burden of the royal family has been shifting. To maintain the institution's stability from a professional standpoint, they need to collaborate. In ways that make it more difficult to avoid interpersonal unpleasantness, their schedules are increasingly overlapping with one another. However, from a personal standpoint, life has become more challenging. In William's mind, Camilla will always be associated with a difficult period in the history of his family. His brother, Prince Harry, and he both bear the wounds of the love triangle that occurred over the last several decades. While a relationship was taking place in the public eye, the two sons witnessed their mother go through the ordeal of being in the public eye. Both of Camilla's brothers see her differently as a result of that early lesson. Insiders claim that there has always been a gap between them, a wall that has not completely fallen down despite the passage of time and the public reunion. The distrust stems from more than just the history of past hurts. The operation of the press adds another aspect to the situation. Ever since their mother's troubles, William and Harry have had a deep-seated mistrust of the media's interference into their lives. Tensions have further increased as a result of reports that Camilla intentionally sought ties with journalists in order to enhance her image. In his book, Spare, Prince Harry wrote about such relationships, and the fact that he did so contributed to an increased level of distrust inside the family. The claim that Camilla utilized press relations to her advantage was something that William and Harry silently conveyed their worries about, according to a source inside the palace. This allegation seemed to them like a betrayal. Princes who are guardians of their privacy and fearful of tabloids found that advice to be quite painful. Within the context of such a setting, the gown incident was never only concerned with fashion. A history of distrust and unsolved grievances was the basis for this conclusion. At first glance, William and Camilla seem to be doing public duties together. They are seen smiling for the cameras, attending the same events and carrying out their responsibilities. According to the insiders, however, there is a persistent discomfort below. In the eyes of the general public, Camilla may seem to have established herself as the queen consort, but for William, her presence continues to provoke a complicated balancing act between his obligations to his father and his commitment to honoring his mother's memory. The next morning, the dinner was present at every location. The tale quickly became the focus of headlines all across the globe. There were sensational banners and television segments that framed the event as evidence of royal disunity. These included phrases such as "Camilla sparks outrage in Catherine's gown," "William's fury erupts over Banquet controversy," and "Royal unity crumbles in silent feud." Photographers had captured William's set jaw, his clenched fists, the tense smiles and sideways glances that spoke louder than any statement. The frozen photographs were responsible for a significant portion of the harm. They presented a visual narrative that was difficult to refute. Images often take precedence over subtlety in contemporary royal life.